yes, so this is more of a long-term commitment, is probably something to consider. What Europe should do, four things. I'll limit it, not to go through the whole list. One, they should do a Sofia platform. That's like what we're having today. And by this I mean is that really to engage in serious dialogue with the neighbors, with the region. And yes, I am aware of so many dialogue initiatives happening, the Euro-Mediterranean and many others. But the very outcome of these dialogues, that there is nothing coming out of that. I mean, the U.S., the EU foreign policy is still in line with the American foreign policy. It's still seeing the region through security lenses. It's realpolitik model, so nothing coming out. So it's probably about time is to either assess what about these dialogue initiatives and how they can be improved, or probably there is something that we're missing here. A major thing that is on the dialogue should be taken into consideration. Another thing, actually, and I'm not coming here to lecture you on democracy, but just a serious commitment to democratic transition. Just to stick to the democratic process, or the democratic transition that's happening in the region. Why is it so difficult? And I know that we talked about this yesterday for long, but I'm not going to continue to talk about it. It's what's happening in Egypt. I mean, everyone knows it's a coup. I mean, why are you so shy about saying it's a coup? And it's very undemocratic. I mean, with all the issues, and the bigger picture and the complex and the brotherhood experiencing governance and all of that. That's all taken together. But at the end of the day, it's a coup, and that is just a commitment to the democratic transition, to the democratic principles. Is necessary, and it's simple if you make this commitment regardless of how this is handling. Number 3 is on the civil society role. And there is a serious civil society movement and approach is happening in the region. You're in Libya, and yes, we know in Libya there wasn't civil society under Gaddafi. But in a very short period of time, there is a very, very vibrant civil society that started and is blossoming, and many in media, youth, women, organizations, you name it. Right? I was very surprised. I was pleasantly surprised of how women organizations claiming their role and being active and taking role in all of this. So there is civil society is taking place. And last thing is on development. And the issue here on development, I don't mean just a very traditional approach of aid, just the very traditional approach of call for friends of Yemen and a friends of Libya and a friends of X and a friends of Y, and then go public, make pledges of $6 billion to Yemen, and then nothing is delivered. And then treating the issues more on a relief basis or something. So the whole politics of development, I think, needs to be revised. There is a huge, I can give you a lot of statistics of how much was pledged and how much was dispersed. But that's not the type of traditional aid approach to dealing with the region is the way or is the key for this. It's really through partnership and through serious development in the region. A free trade zone is something that is sustainable. The current approach, the aid approach, is not very sustainable, and I'm not sure actually to what extent it builds capacity within the local situations in these countries. So it's more of an innovative, new development approach that departs from the traditional aid thing is necessary here. And I will end with just one last thing from my own experience on the issue of democratic transition and the commitment to democratic principles. With the beginning of the Arab Spring, Arab revolutions, I was receiving like dozens of media requests, is to explain what is happening and what is happening in the region. So I was giving media interviews here and there and on all different subjects that's happening in the region, and a lot from the majority from Western media. And the common thing among all the media requests that I received, whether it's the question on Gaddafi when he was killed or on Mubarak when he stepped down, the very common question among all of them: what is happening with the Islamists? Are the Islamists taking over? What is the Islamists are going to do with this? You don't have to fear about what is the Islamist and the Islamist threat. Just to stick to the principle, to the democratic transition and to the democratic process, and I think things will sort themselves out. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think it was a very helpful and interesting list that you've done for us. Last on the panel, Mr. Pomianowski, and we were just chatting actually because he wanted to say a couple of things in Bulgarian. I wasn't too certain whether we have translation, but then I recalled it. There was someone in the last panel speaking in Bulgarian, so please, you have the floor.
It's a bit egoistic approach. I used to just speak a little bit of Bulgarian, but being here in Bulgaria and not using some occasion for basic practice of my Bulgarian would be a missed opportunity. So allow me just to say a few words of friendship to our Bulgarian colleagues. За мен е огромно удоволствие да присъствам на тази добива вече популярност конференцията. Сега в София, кога аз проведох много приятно време преди това. Също е много доволен, че ще имам възможност да се срещам с президента на България, господин Росен Плевнивлев. В студенчески си години често посещах българското Черноморието във време на летните ваканции, също така в Боровец, да докарам ски през зимата. Както всички знаем, младият ум е гибкав и отворен за нови знания, затова бързо успях да науча малко български. Това ми дава възможност днес да ви приветствам на прекрасния език на нашите домакини. Връщая се назад във времето през 80-те години на минава века, никога не съм предполагал, че един ден ще гостувам в европейска София като гражданин на Европейския съюз. Това ме кара да се чувствам истински щастлив и горд. Благодаря да ме поканили. So now allow me to switch back to English, especially that I think that the vocabulary I picked 30 years ago on Bulgarian language will not be sufficient enough to deal with democracy and the transition. Those days we were rather talking different subjects, at least at the official meetings. Well, here I am to tell you a few words on newly established European Endowment for Democracy, and also to say a few words of our direct experience, how we think, especially in the region, endowment can bring a change, and also what we believe with the establishment of the endowment are lessons learned. So indeed answering the questions what Europe can do differently and better. The endowment is an NGO established by the member states of the European Union and European institutions that includes the Commission, External Action Service and European Parliament. All those bodies, including member states, are reflected in our governing board, which is huge. So it's not that easy to deal with them. As an executive director, it's a huge challenge for me. But with the help of the smaller executive committee, we are managing until now not that bad. The endowment and the name of endowment you can easily associate with the National Endowment for Democracy. There is a degree of inspiration, but at the same time, answering to Ibrahim, I would say we want to make this in a European way. So we would like really to show how using similar name and the kind of approach to support, to democracy support, we can do this really with the flavor of Europe and with our experience. And here, a very important part of the whole motion about setting up endowment comes from the countries that recently, like Bulgaria, Poland, recently came their own transition period, all challenges related to it. So we do have this very fresh experience, and it's part of our mandate also to use as much as we can this historic recent experience in order either to provide support or to provide at least some kind of learning example to our partners in the Middle East and North Africa. So I think that is the first, what we can say, what Europe now is trying to do differently. As I think Europe is slowly learning, and I fully agree with Ibrahim, that trading human rights, trading democratic values for stability looks like wise policy for decade or even decades, but isn't it today the price we are paying for it, dealing with instability in the region and thinking what is the best policy now? So I think the first answer we can bring is that we need more coherence within our policies, and making sure that the base of the Europe, that our European values, are properly guarded also whenever we approach the issue of foreign policies and the foreign relation, external relation of the European Union. Endowment is just a small instrument that tries to fill existing gaps in a support for democracy and civil society. Those gaps were clearly identified when the Arab Spring or Arab Revolution started, but also before. So the idea of setting up something like endowment was floating for quite a time. Those gaps are quite simple, and they were very clearly explained when Minister Sikorski and